right, welcome everybody to Standing for Truth. My name is Donny Budinsky, and I am your host and moderator for tonight's exciting debate on the question, is the Bible true and reliable? And I am thrilled to have Katrina and Gary here with me to engage this very important and, of course, interesting topic. Now, it is Katrina and Gary's first time here on the Standing for Truth debate platform. So I do appreciate you guys giving us your time for tonight's debate. And so let's get acquainted and get to know you guys a little bit before we get into our opening statements and debate itself. Katrina, let's start with you. It's always good to see new faces here at Standing for Truth. And so, Katrina, how are you today? And also tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. So I got saved when I was 20 years old. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I didn't find out that my dad was an atheist until I was telling him about Jesus Christ, my newfound faith, and he literally cussed me out. And so, but I was going to a Baptist church at the time, and I was questioning some things that the preacher was preaching about, and I would always come up after the service and ask him these questions, and I would say, "Hey, well, this is what you're preaching, but this is what the Bible actually says." And he gave me a challenge. He said, "Well, if you don't believe what I'm saying, you need to go home and you need to ask the Holy Spirit to give you understanding." And I did exactly that, and ever since then, I've been interested in apologetics and defending the Bible and defending Christianity, and I've been doing that now for about 34 years or so. And so I went to a Bible college. I got a degree in psychology, and decided to switch gears, join the Army, became an Army nurse, and retired from the Army. And now I have a doctorate of nursing practice. So I love science. I love the Bible. I love debating. And so here I am.
Awesome. That's great. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Katrina. Hopefully this is the first of many debates and discussions for you in here on Standing for Truth. So Katrina, thank you very much for the intro. Gary, it's your first time here as well on the Standing for Truth debate platform. So I appreciate you giving us your time for tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you also have a channel, Truth Seeking Atheist. So tell us a little bit about what you do over there.
Everybody, nice to be here. By the way, nice intro, Donny. My story is sort of the opposite to Katrina's there. I grew up in a Christian household. I was a very, very strong evangelical Christian for the first 50 years of my life. I was a youth pastor. I led Bible studies, the whole thing until my deconversion, when I became an atheist. I started a channel, the Truth Seeking Atheist, the YouTube channel. I've got a website, truthseekingatheist.com, and now I spend my free time writing, doing YouTube videos, etc.
All right, Gary. Well, I appreciate that. For anybody who wants to see more from you, I do have your channel linked in the description box for people to check out. So Katrina, Gary, thank you very much for those introductions. Again, it is a privilege to have you both here to debate tonight's question. For anybody just joining us in the live chat, we are debating the question, is the Bible true and reliable? Katrina takes the affirmative for tonight, and Gary takes the negative. Now, format-wise, we have a formal debate tonight. We're going to be starting with 15-minute opening statements. Then we'll have an uninterrupted rebuttal, 10 minutes. So we'll have a comprehensive rebuttal for our guests tonight to engage each other's opening statements. Then we'll jump right into a cross-examination. So cross-examination is going to be 50 minutes, 25 minutes each to lead the way in cross and discussion. Then we'll have a 5-minute concluding statement to wrap up our thoughts, wrap up our points. And then this is where we get you guys in the audience involved. We'll have a roughly 25-minute audience Q&A. So please, if you do have a question or a challenge for our debaters tonight, do your best to tag me either at Donny or at Standing for Truth. And then let me know who the question's for, Katrina or Gary. Okay, let's get right into our first 15-minute opening statement. What I can do, guys, is give you a 1-minute warning for each section, and then that way you'll know to kind of start winding things down. Katrina, we'll give you the floor, and you just let me know when your slides are good to go, and we can. Oh, I see them here.
Okay, you ready?
Yes. Are you thinking to put your slides in presentation mode just to make it?
Wait, I forgot. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Just to make it a little easier to see the text.
How about that?
Yeah, that looks great. And if you could as well, if you see that little bar at the bottom, notice there's a hide button. That might be distracting for you. So if you click hide, you're good to go, Katrina.
Got it. Thank you. I am so computer challenged.
You'll be an expert after this.
All right. So my stance is that the Bible is true and reliable. And there's a verse that I have here. Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. That's from Psalm 119 and 160. Evidence. Oops. Wait a minute. Are you seeing my slides change?
Yes, they're changing on our end.
Okay. Right here. Whoops, wait a minute. Sorry. All right, so there is sufficient evidence for knowing the Bible is true and reliable. The Bible reads as an historical, factual news account about real events, places, people, and dialogues. There are multiple levels of evidence, which I present as 6 main reasons to support the truth and authenticity of Scripture. Its fulfilled prophecies testify to the reliability of the Bible as the Word of God. And I have 6 main reasons. Sorry. All right. So 6 main reasons. There is internal consistency. The Bible is remarkably consistent throughout, despite being written by over 40 authors over a period of about 2,000 years. The Bible's themes include God's moral law, man's rebellion against God's law, and God's plan of salvation. Archaeological evidence. Archaeological discoveries have confirmed the existence of people, places, and events in the Bible. There's manuscript reliability. The New Testament records The New Testament records are very accurate, with minor differences between manuscripts that don't change key Christian beliefs. Fulfilled prophecy. The Bible contains prophecies that have been fulfilled. Jesus' testimony. Jesus trusted the Bible and testified to his authenticity. And scientific accuracy. Several verses in the Bible are backed by science. The word science comes from the Latin word meaning to have knowledge. The Bible speaks on scientific principles about the natural world. Now, I'm not claiming that the Bible is a science book, but there are scientific truths that are presented in the Bible. All right, internal consistency. Our modern Bibles contain 39 Old Testament books, 27 New Testament books, written by more than 40 different authors over a span of 1,500 to 2,000 years, and in 3 primary languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. In spite of these obstacles, the Bible is incredibly continuous and consistent. The agreement among over the 5,686 New Testament manuscripts is 99.5%. In comparison, of the 643 copies of Homer's Iliad, there is only 95% agreement. So the Bible is more in agreement than any of the other historical records that we have available. The Bible never contradicts itself or its common themes. Supposed contradictions are either a different way to express the same truth or a more detailed account of the same truth. The dictionary definition of the word contradiction is a combination of statements, ideas, or features of a situation that are opposed to one another. Nothing like this exists in the Bible. Archaeological evidence. Archaeologists have found inscriptions that prove the existence of Lysanias, the Tetrarch of Abilene, in AD 14 to 29. The existence of the Hittites was validated in Turkey in 1906 by Hugh Winkler. The walls of ancient Jericho were discovered to have fallen down outwards instead of inwards, which was typical because of the battering of invading armies. They would usually fall inwards. So this confirms the account in Joshua chapter 6, verse 20. The Ketef Hinnom scrolls, discovered in 1979 in Israel and dating back to the 7th century BC, contain the benediction found in number 6. And there are several other archaeological evidences that I didn't even include in this presentation. Manuscript reliability. The manuscripts are hand copies of the original documents. The Jewish scribes painstakingly copied the manuscripts letter by letter to avoid errors and used many cross-checking devices to maintain accuracy. They counted the number of times each letter of the alphabet occurred in each book, and if more than 3 discrepancies existed, they destroyed the entire copied manuscript. The Dead Sea Scrolls, written around 70 BC and discovered in 1947, was almost identical to the modern text that we have, excluding the Book of Esther. There are over 5,000 copies of the New Testament manuscripts written between 50 and 90 AD, with the earliest copy from 130 AD. Fulfilled prophecy. The book of Daniel describes 4 succession of empires with complete accuracy and precision, tens to hundreds of years before the events: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The Persian king Cyrus was mentioned in Isaiah 44:28, 200 years before his birth. Micah 5:2 mentions the birthplace of Jesus in Bethlehem over 600 years before he was born. Isaiah 53 details the circumstances of Jesus Christ's crucifixion 200 years before it was practiced by the Romans as a form of criminal punishment. There are dozens of other prophecies concerning the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus that are not included in this presentation. Jesus' testimony. Jesus proclaimed that the scripture cannot be broken in John 10:35. Jesus said, "Search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me." John 5:39. Jesus confirmed the flood during the time of Noah in Matthew 24:38 and 39, and Luke 17:26 and 27. Jesus confirmed the fate of Lot's wife in Luke 17:32. Jesus testifies about other historical people of Scripture, particularly Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, and Elijah. Scientific accuracy. Astronomy. The Bible claims the universe has a beginning. It speaks of the innumerable unique stars that follow a predictable pattern. It proclaims that the earth is round and hangs on nothing, and these can be found in these following scriptures: Genesis 1:1, Genesis 22:17, 1 Corinthians 15:41, Jeremiah 31:35, Isaiah 40:22, and Job 26:7. Anthropology, paleontology. The Bible claims that all humans descended from one man and one woman. That's in Genesis 3:20 and Acts 17:26. Genetics verifies that there is only one human race, sharing over 99.9% of their DNA. When comparing all of the human and primate fossils found, there are only either humans or primates. There are no transitional forms in existence. Biology. The Bible claims that God created each animal after his own kind, meaning that each living creature was created with the ability to only reproduce with its own distinct category, preventing crossbreeding between fundamentally different types of animals. And that's found in the book of Genesis in several verses. And blood circulation is essential to life. That's found in Leviticus 17:11, that says that the life of, I think it says the life is in the blood. Geology. The Bible claims God destroyed the earth and the creatures inhabiting it by a worldwide flood in which all the fountains of the great deep were broken up. That's found in Genesis 7:10 through 12. Modern geologists have confirmed that many sedimentary rock layers were deposited catastrophically, burying many fossils within only minutes or hours. Cosmology and physics. When we consider the first law of thermodynamics, we know that matter and energy are always conserved. Matter and energy are neither created nor destroyed, so their existence has been completed in the past and conserved today. When we consider the second law of thermodynamics, we know that time, space, and matter had a definite beginning because we can back extrapolate entropy and heat energy. Entropy always increases. Therefore, with any physical change, there is always energy that gets used up. There is always increasing disorder from order, and there is always movement toward decay and disintegration, and heat always dissipates to its environment. These two laws are evident in the very first verse of the Bible in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning is time. God created the heaven, which is space, and the earth is matter and energy. In conclusion, from Genesis to Revelation, the Bible reflects a high ethical monotheism, not an evolutionary progression from primitive religious ideas to a more advanced Christology. It reflects the love of the Creator for his most prized creation, humankind, despite their flaws and vulnerabilities. Hebrews 2:6-10. The Bible has withstood the test of time for millennia and has remained the most read and widely distributed book in the entire world. The evidence I presented is further proof of its trustworthiness and reliability for all who would read it with a sincere desire to know its true author, the Holy Spirit of God. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. And I have some references. If anyone wants to have a copy of this presentation, they're welcome to it.
Katrina, thank you very much for that opening statement for tonight's debate. To those in the audience, anybody just joining us, I do want to remind you we will be having an audience Q&A where we get to interact and engage with your comments, questions, and challenges. So feel free to send those in and we'll have some fun interacting with them. Okay, I am going to reset the timer. And Gary, you have your opening statement, 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Can I just get to the top here? All right. Hello, guys. I'd like to take a moment firstly to thank Donny and his team for hosting this debate, and the lovely Katrina, who has amicably debated me on more than one occasion, for agreeing to this topic with me. It's always good in a setting like this to define terms. This debate is titled, "Is the Bible True and Reliable?" So what do I mean by true and reliable? True, I believe, is that which comports with reality. The Oxford Dictionary has it as in accordance with fact or reality. Something essentially can only be true if it has evidence to back it up. Reliable, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is consistently good in quality or performance, able to be trusted. This is something I will touch on again in a little while. Katrina told me prior to this debate that the only Bible version she believes in is the King James Version. So this is the version I'll be quoting going forwards. Now, if I can find only one instance, one example in which the Bible is shown to be in error, I will have succeeded in my argument that the Bible is, as a whole, is not true and reliable. Although there are many categories I could use to achieve this, I am only going to utilize three of them: contradictions, scientific errors, and failed prophecy. Why are contradictions so devastating to the credibility of the Bible? If two events are depicted in a contradictory manner, they cannot both be true. For example, if I call you and tell you I'm currently visiting a cousin in New York, and a few minutes later I tell you I'm currently visiting my cousin in Hawaii, both statements cannot be true. There could be several reasons for these contradictory statements. I could be lying. I could have misspoken. I could have been confused. The reason for the error is irrelevant to the fact that both statements cannot be simultaneously accurate. My statements cannot be taken as true and reliable. Similarly, if the Bible makes contradictory claims, one of them must be false. That portion of the Bible then cannot be considered true and reliable. If one portion of the Bible cannot be considered true and reliable, then by extension, the Bible as a whole cannot be considered true and reliable. So if we can identify a contradiction, then by association, my case has been made. When it comes to contradictions in the Bible, there are hundreds of examples. So in the interest of time constraints, I will very briefly address only three of them. Although some contradictions are weak and not worthy of pursuing, like the Bible stating that pi equals 3 in 1 Kings 7:23, and the contradictory accounts of how Judas died according to Matthew 27:5 and Acts 1:18, although the second one could be argued as a true contradiction, it's not one I'll be pursuing in making my case. I'd be happy to discuss it later on, but I have more pressing examples. There are many other verses that are absolutely contradictory. God tells us in Exodus 33:20 that no man will see his face and live. Yet Jacob saw him, as did Abram, so too did Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Joshua, and 70 of the elders of Israel. These sightings occurred in Genesis 32:20, 12:7, Exodus 33:11, and Exodus 24:9-11. These people all lived to tell the tale. Despite all those people having admittedly seen God, John 1:18 and 1 Timothy 6:16 says no man has ever seen God. At least 2 verses in the Bible say no man has seen God, yet several verses tell of men who have seen God. This is a clear contradiction. According to Job 9:6, the earth stands on pillars, while according to Job 26:7, it is also suspended upon nothing. It is impossible for an object to be both suspended from and standing upon something. Being suspended means the object's weight is being carried by whatever is suspending it from above, while standing on something means the object's weight is being carried by whatever is holding it up from beneath. It is impossible for both scenarios to be simultaneously accurate. This is a clear contradiction. The third contradiction has to do with God's disposition. Micah 7:18 tells us, "He retaineth not his anger forever, because he delighteth in mercy." But in Jeremiah 14:4, God says, "For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever." So which is it? Does God's anger not last forever, a la Micah 7:18, or does his anger last forever, Jeremiah 14:4? Both cannot be true. This is a clear contradiction. I'd like to now move on to the second of my topic showing how the Bible cannot be true and reliable, the scientific errors found within the pages. Once again, there are hundreds of examples to be found, but I'll focus on only 2. The first scientific error deals with the first 4 days of the world. Genesis 1:3-5. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, there was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Moving on to verses 16-19. And God made 2 great lights, the great light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good, and the evening and the morning were the 4th day. Now here's where the scientific error, well, actually 2 errors rolled into one, comes in. If God made light on the first day and the sun on the 4th day, what produced the light on the first 3 days? And how had 3 days passed? It's impossible for 3 days to have passed absent the sun. The Bible is wrong. This is a scientific error. The second scientific error has to do with the genetics of reproduction. Genesis 30 verses 37-39 reads, "And Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pulled white strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had pulled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, and they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted." So essentially, these verses tell us how if spotted, striped, or speckled sticks are placed in front of mating sheep, they will produce spotted, striped, or speckled offspring accordingly. Biologically, this is absolute nonsense. There is no research that suggests such a thing is even possible, let alone probable. Both answers in Genesis and GodQuestions.org state that this worked because the sticks had medicinal properties and God intervened. God intervened is not an answer. If God intervened was a sufficient answer, wouldn't he have just made the newborn spotted, striped, and speckled according to Jacob's wishes? Isn't that what prayer is for? That way Jacob could have avoided all the unnecessary steps of preparing the sticks. Furthermore, no matter how much medicinal properties the sticks have, it wouldn't change the genetic makeup of the sheep. Sheep mating in front of striped or speckled sticks will not produce striped or speckled offspring. This is a scientific error. Lastly, I'd like to turn my attention to failed prophecy in the Bible. Once again, I have a plethora to choose from. I'll just use one instance to make my case, the destruction of Tyre, found in Ezekiel 26. I'm not going to read the entire chapter. Feel free to do that for yourselves to ensure I'm not taking anything out of context. In verse 7, God tells the inhabitants of Tyre, Nebuchadnezzar would invade from the north, that he, in verse 9, would break down the city's towers, and in verse 10, he would breach the city and enter the gates. Verses 11, 12, and 13 describe the carnage and destruction visited upon the city of Tyre. Verse 14 tells us how Tyre would become a bare rock, good only for the spreading of fishing nets, and it would never be rebuilt. Ezekiel prophesies further in verse 19 that God would raise the waters of the deep and cover the land in flood. And finally, in verse 21, that the city would never be found again. None of this came to pass. Nebuchadnezzar did lay siege to the city of Tyre in 598 BC for 13 years, but could never breach its walls. He did manage to conquer one of the mainland suburbs of Tyre called Ushu, but the main island city remained unaffected. It was not until 332 BC, 260 years later, that Alexander the Great conquered Tyre. Ezekiel got that wrong. Tyre was never totally destroyed to such an extent that it became a bare rock for nothing more than spreading fishing nets. Ezekiel got that wrong. The land was never completely flooded over by water. Ezekiel got that wrong. Ezekiel said Tyre would never be rebuilt. He got that wrong. And that it would never be found again. Today, Tyre is the 5th largest city in Lebanon, is rich in commerce and industry, as well as huge in the tourism industry. It was not only found again, it thrives on international visitors. Ezekiel got that wrong. I have shown how the Bible is scientifically wrong, rife with contradictions, and have at least one failed prophecy. So if the Bible is demonstrably wrong in so much as a single instance that cannot be considered true and reliable, I want to touch on the question of reliability for a moment, as I mentioned earlier. I can imagine many people saying, yes, but a few instances of error don't make the whole Bible unreliable. If I have a car that starts up 80% of the time, it's not reliable. If I have a car that gets me to my destination 90% of the time, it's not reliable. If I have a Bible that's true 99% of the time, it's not reliable. In this case, the Bible cannot be considered true and reliable. Thank you for your time.
Gary, thank you very much for that opening statement, Katrina and Gary. That concludes our opening statements for tonight's debate. We're now moving into a 10-minute rebuttal. And so we got plenty of points and arguments now on the table to engage in our rebuttal here. So Katrina, I will reset the timer and hand it back to you. Whenever you're ready, let me know. And again, you got 10 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. So you mentioned some supposed discrepancies in the Bible, but these are not considered discrepancies. They're not considered contradictions. For instance, in Exodus 33:20, where it says, "No man has seen God and lived." Well, we Christians know that God is a triune being. No one has seen the Father and has lived, because we know that in the Old Testament there was what's called the angel of the Lord, who was the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. What Abraham saw when he looked out and saw under the tree of Mamre, he saw the angel of the Lord. He called him Lord. He went to worship him. That was the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. When Jacob wrestled with God, he was wrestling with the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. So, and we know that there's a difference, because when Moses was put on the mountain on the side of the rock, and he said, "God, let me see your face." And God said, "No, if I let you see my face, you'll be dead." He put his hand over Moses' face and shown his backside to Moses, and his glory was shown so brightly that when Moses went back down to address the people, his face shone, and he had to put a veil over his face because the people were so afraid. So we know that this is ridiculous that you would even, that atheists in general consider this as a contradiction. I mean, God is all encompassing. He's a triune being. He is alive in the hearts of Christians today as the person of the Holy Spirit. So that is not a discrepancy. It's not a contradiction. When you mention Job 9:6 and Job 26:7, I'm not really familiar with those particular verses, but I will look them up real quick. You said that the earth is on pillars, and as we discussed before this debate, there are metaphors and there are hyperbole. There's plenty of hyperbole and metaphors in the Bible, and Job is not only a historical narrative of the life of a man who worshiped God and who ended up having some severe setbacks because of a wager that God had between himself and Satan. It's also poetically written. It's considered one of the poetic books of the Bible. So hyperbole and metaphor, simile, those are all throughout the book of Job. And so there's no contradiction there either. Same as in Micah 7:18. All of these verses that you mentioned have an explanation that when you really consider the context and you consider the writing, the time, the author, the context, there are no contradictions. There are different ways of saying things, as I mentioned earlier. And for your scientific error, there is no scientific error in the first chapter of Genesis. You said that that how could there be a day without the sun? Well, in the very first and second verses, God said, "Let there be light." So there was light before the sun. My own personal opinion is that God, who is light, manifested his light into this physical realm. And that is the light that was shining during the first 3 days of creation before the sun and the moon were created. And the day is not measured by light, it's measured by its rotation on its axis. So a full rotation of the earth is a 24-hour day. And the Bible clearly says the evening and the morning were the first day. So there's no contradiction there. We didn't need the sun to make it a day. It was just so happened that God created the sun and the moon and the stars on the fourth day. And I personally believe it was because he did not want people worshiping the sun and the moon, which eventually they did, because as we know, there was a fall and Adam sinned and caused that sin nature to pass down generation through generation to the entire human race. So there is no scientific error there. As far as the destruction of Tyre goes, Tyre was not rebuilt until the new Israel came to be. This is in our modern times, but the nation of Israel, the original nation of Israel, was never, Tyre was never rebuilt. The Philistines never rebuilt Tyre. So there's no contradiction there either. So you still have to look at context. You have to look at the themes of the Bible. You have to look at its context. You have to look at what is the main message of the Bible. So again, no contradiction. It's just a different way of saying something. And it meant that it was totally destroyed at that time. And the only reason it's here now is because the nation of Israel was, in the 20th century, they became a new nation. And I think that's all I have for my rebuttal.
Katrina, thank you very much for your rebuttal. We'll now reset the timer and hand it back to Gary. Gary, you're good to go. I'll start the timer on your first word. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I probably won't use the whole 10 minutes for this. I just want to make a couple of points. The first thing has to do with historical, the real names and places in the Bible. That's unsurprising. There is a genre that's called historical fiction. So historical fiction takes real names, real places, real events, and builds a story around them which is not true. Take Spider-Man, for example. In the Spider-Man comic books, it takes place in New York. All the famous buildings are there. All the rivers are there. Yet Spider-Man itself is not true. If we had to take a similar line to what we're doing with the Bible, saying, well, the Bible has real places and real people that we know did exist, and it also has this Jesus character, then if we had to take the Spider-Man comic books 2,000 years into the future, and somebody found a Spider-Man comic book and they went, well, yes, we know New York existed and Empire State Building and everything else existed, then Spider-Man must have existed too. There's also the very good example of that. That escapes me for the moment. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or something like that. Nobody that movie. Nobody would argue that Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter. Yet, in the movie, there was most of it was accurate about his presidency, places that the thing occurred in, but nobody would say it was true. So historical fiction is a very real genre, and we must be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater as far as that is concerned. Another thing that bothers me here is, I do agree with you. There are many metaphors and hyperbole in the Bible, but that just proves my point. Metaphors by design are something that are untrue that is used to make a point. So if I want to make a point, I would think of a hypothetical example that's closely related to the actual topic I want to that I want to put across. And I would use that hypothetical example to prove my point. Now, that's what a metaphor is. A metaphor is a not true story told to bring about a greater point, to explain a point. So by definition, that metaphor is not true. The same goes for hyperbole, which essentially is exaggeration. Anytime that you exaggerate something, you are not telling the truth. It is untrue because you're making it either much larger or much smaller than what it originally was meant to be. The other one that I wanted to just quickly, the thing about Jesus, the fulfilled prophecy of Jesus. Just because it's written in a book doesn't automatically make it true. Is it possible that Jesus' followers really believed that he was the Messiah, who was meant to bring about this kingdom of God that was meant to rule forever? Then he was killed in the most unceremonious way possible. He was executed on a cross, executed by the enemy. The Jews were left wondering what's going on. They had to try and figure a way to make this work. So they went to the scriptures to try and find out what went wrong. They went and read through the scriptures, found things to do with the Messiah, and applied them to Jesus. Did Jesus really do all those things? Probably not. But it was written down, and it was put in the Bible, what became the Bible as truth, even though it probably was just something that was added in to help the situation along. Thank you.
Gary, thank you for that rebuttal. Katrina and Gary, that concludes our opening statements and rebuttals. We're moving along smoothly. We're now entering everybody's favorite part of these formal debates, the cross-examination, where we get to engage and directly interact with each other's points. And so Gary just ended with his rebuttal. Therefore, Katrina, we'll give you the first 25 minutes to lead the way in cross-examination. Go ahead.
So you mentioned that hyperbole is something that is not true or exaggerated. However, they are a picture of the truth, in my opinion. So like right now, it's raining outside. It's raining pretty hard. And we in America say that it's raining cats and dogs. Well, we know that it's not literally cats and dogs coming out from the sky, but we know that it's raining hard. So the Bible has things like that instituted within it. There is a way that you know the difference. It's not, I mean, you wouldn't, if you told me that it's raining cats and dogs, I would not think that it's raining cats and dogs. I would think that it's raining hard, and I would think that what you said is true, because that is it is a hyperbole that is meant to portray a truth. So it's still true, whether it's, you know, it's you know in your head that it's a true statement that it's raining cats and dogs. You know that it's raining hard. So and so what I guess my question is, how do you determine when you're reading something, how do you determine whether or not something is true or not if it uses hyperbole? Are you just calling it a lie just to say that it's not true, or do you say that it's true, or what? How do you determine that? How do you reconcile that?
Well, I agree with you that hyperbole is used to make a point, an exaggeration. We also say it's raining cats and dogs here in my country. But although we all know what we mean and what everybody else means, it isn't actually raining cats and dogs. So although we know what's meant, it's not the truth. The true way to say it is it's raining really hard. So hyperbole does make it an untruth.
Okay. Well, I disagree with you on that, because if somebody comes to you and says it's raining cats and dogs, you would know that it's raining hard. You would know that it's the truth. So there's no, you know what hyperbole is. So in the Bible, these were Jewish writers. They understood the hyperbole because of the culture. They knew that, you know, what these sayings were. Like in Ezekiel, I can't remember the chapter, but it talks about how there's a proverb that they used to say, and the Ezekiel says, well, there's going to come a time where you no longer say this proverb, because they were it was under the leadership of Ahab, who was a very wicked king, and his wife Jezebel, who was even worse than him, and they were treating people badly. They were putting innocent people in prison. They were going after God's prophets, and they were punishing people's families because of what someone did. You know, they would punish his wife or his children. And then Ezekiel says, there's going to come a time where where the sons are going to be punished for their own crimes. The fathers are going to be punished for their own crimes. It's not going to be where sons are punished for their father's crimes. So these are things that Jewish people understood. So when you're reading through the Bible, when you read it from Genesis through Revelation, you pick up on these things. You know the difference between
Katrina, and I just want to remind you to wrap up your points with a question mark for.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. You guys are doing great.
So, well, I don't really have any more questions. I just want to know well, let me ask you this. Have you ever read the Bible from Genesis through Revelation?
I'm going to jump in real quick. For you, Gary, before you answer, what we can do is kind of shift it more towards so for example, we have 25 minutes each to lead the way in questions. Let's be less strict, and we'll have 25 minutes each where you guys lead the way. And so that way you're not feeling like you have to always ask a question. So for example, right now, Katrina, you'll have 25 minutes to basically lead the way, and you guys can have more of a dialogue. And then Gary, you'll do the same. So anyways, Katrina, appreciate that last question. Gary, we'll hand it over to you to respond.
Yeah, I've read the Bible, Genesis to Revelation, several times. I've read it in 3 different versions: the King James, the NIV, and the ESV. I've read it in 2 languages. We also in our country have another language called Afrikaans. I've read it in that one. I've read the Bible. I've taught the Bible. I've studied the Bible. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So with that said, you should know the difference between narrative and hyperbole. I mean, you're an intelligent person. You know the difference. So
no, absolutely, I do, and I don't have an issue with that. Hyperbole is a very important aspect in writing, in speaking, in communication. It's a good way of making a very important point, but it can't be confused for the truth. The hyperbole in itself is an untruth designed to make a broader point. So if it's raining cats and dogs, it's not literally true. We all understand what is meant by it. We all grew up knowing what is meant by it. It means it's raining really, really hard. And nobody thinks for a moment that that's not what raining cats and dogs means. But the phrase, it's raining cats and dogs, is not true in itself.
So I guess we have two different definitions of what is true, because the Bible is true from Genesis to Revelation. The Bible is true, but it uses hyperbole to express these points. Like you said, it's raining cats and dogs. If someone were to tell you, hey man, it's raining cats and dogs outside, you might want to take an umbrella. You wouldn't say, no, it's not raining. You would know that it's true. It's raining hard. So that is a truth. So truth does not mean literally all the time. I mean, there are things that are literal, but I mean, they're either true or they're not true, but hyperbole in the Bible enhances the truth. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it enhances the story, not the truth. Well, I was supposed to say, if the point is it's raining outside really hard, and that is the truth, it is raining outside very hard, then the hyperbole would enhance the truth in that aspect, in that way. But by saying it's raining cats and dogs, that statement in itself is not true. You touched on that we have different definition of truth. That's probably quite accurate. As I said in my presentation, my definition of truth is that which comports with reality, or that which is backed up by evidence. So if somebody says to me it's raining cats and dogs outside, if it was literally true, you would see cats and dogs falling from the sky, even though everybody knows that what you mean is something completely different. You're using flowery language to express a truthful point, but that flowery language in itself is not true.
But it's still raining. It's true.
Absolutely, it's raining. It's raining really, really hard. But it's not raining cats and dogs.
Why is that different than what the Bible says? Why do you see it differently? Nobody said that the Bible is literally true throughout, but it is true and reliable, because the hyperbole that it uses enhances the truth. So when it says something like the God upholds the earth on pillars, it means that the earth is stable. The earth is never going to be destroyed. It's never going to go off its track. We can rest assured that when we wake up tomorrow, the earth is still going to be there. The earth is still going to be functioning the way it's supposed to. That's what it means. The hyperbole in the Bible enhances the truth. It doesn't mean that the Bible is literally on pillars. I mean, that would be ridiculous. The Bible is because the Bible also says that the Lord sits on the circle of the earth, or something like to that effect. We know that the earth is round. So I really don't understand why you're having a hard time understanding how the hyperbole, the metaphors, the similes, how they enhance the truth and make the Bible even more true by pointing out those things that are true.
No, don't get me wrong. I agree with you 100%. The metaphors and the hyperbole within the Bible do enhance the stories in the Bible. That's what they're designed for. But that, by definition, the hyperbole and the metaphors are not true, by definition.
Okay, so we still have a different definition of what's true. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, the Bible is true, and these metaphors enhance the truth. So that means that when in our human minds, when we say that the Lord is a strong tower, we're not saying that he's a literal tower, a literal physical tower. We're saying that he is a solid rock. He is strength to us. He is we can trust in him. We can rely on him. He's stable. So it's not that it's a lie. It's that it's enhancing the truth. And the truth is not just what can be seen and felt and heard. It is a concept that we know that this is true. It is it's a reality for us. You know, I stand on the rock of Christ. He's not a literal rock. We say that that Jesus is the door to the Father. He's not a literal door. So if you say that the Bible is not true because Christ is not a literal door, that is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument, because we know we use hyperbole in language to enhance our speech, to enhance a thought, to enhance a reality that we have. So the Bible is true regardless, but it uses the metaphors and the hyperboles, the similes and the idioms to enhance that truth, to say, hey, this is what Jesus is, but we know that he's even more than that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I do. This is where one of the things you said now is problematic. When you said that nobody ever said that the Bible is literally true. I've been in Christian circles my entire life, and trust me, most of them believe that the Bible is literally true, word for word, cover to cover. So it's very difficult to speak to somebody about, I'm not talking about you now, people generally, about metaphor and similes and symbolisms and things like that, when they believe that the Bible is literally true. So if you believe the Bible is literally true, which most Christians that I've interacted with do, then you'd have to take the entire thing as literally true. You don't get to pick and choose which parts you want literal and which parts you want figurative, unless that's what you're aiming for. If your aim is to say, well, the Bible is true except for the parts that are designed to enhance the true parts, well, that I could live with. But then you can't tell me the entire Bible is true and reliable.
Well, it's unfortunate that Christians. Oh, okay.
Oh, I was going to say, very good back and forth on that specific point. But I think because we're 14 minutes in, it might be a good idea to pick another point and start interacting with that one.
Can either of us pick a point?
No, because Katrina is leading the way for 25 minutes. So let's do this.
Okay.
On that specific point of hyperbole and symbolism and whether or not the Bible's literal or figurative in these instances. Let's leave that issue now up to the audience to decide. Katrina, was there another point that Gary brought up in his rebuttal or opening statement that you'd like to engage?
No, I think I addressed all of them, if I remember correctly.
Well, in his rebuttal, how he responded to your points, was there something that you noticed that you'd like to press him on or challenge him on?
I guess the scientific part.
Yeah, I'd like to, because I noticed in your slides, Katrina, you brought up several points dealing with geology,
Right.
genetics, astronomy. Was there anything there you'd like to challenge Gary on?
Well, yeah. So we've had this discussion before about the 6 days of creation. And I guess I want to ask you, so if you, Gary, I'm asking you a question. If you understand that a day is counted as a literal rotation on its axis, then why do you think that the sun has to be present for there to be a day?
Sorry, let me just quickly call up this. All right, so in the I don't have it here right now. All right, so when in Genesis 1, where it says that at the end of each of the days, especially before day 4, it says the morning and the evening were the first day. Morning and evening are defined by the rising and the setting of the sun.
Says who?
So, okay, what defines morning and evening?
Morning and evening is defined in Genesis 1, where it says the morning and the evening were the first day, and there was light and there was darkness. There was a separation between light and darkness, and that is in Genesis 1 verse 2, I believe. God said, "Let there be light," and God separated the light from the darkness. So there was light on one side, darkness on the other side. Even though there was no sun, it was still a light present there. I don't know what it is. I personally believe that it was God's light that he manifested into the physical realm, because God is a spirit and he is invisible to us. We can't see him. So that light he manifested into the physical realm, and there was light on one side, darkness on the other side, and that full rotation of the earth, evening and morning, was the first day, the second day, the third day, all the way through day, to now, except for when he on the fourth day he did create the sun and the moon to replace that light as the new light, but before there was still light and there was still darkness.
Okay, where do you get that thing, that statement of yours that that the light that God created was his light?
It's a logical deduction that I have. It's not something that I read in the Bible. It's a logical deduction. He is light, as we find in Revelation, the book of Revelation, and in the book of John. God is light.
A logical deduction to me would be, sorry. A logical deduction to me then would be actually from the reading, Genesis 1 verse 4. No, not 4, verse 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Logically, that tells me that if he called the light day and the darkness he called night, we know the difference between day and night is the presence or absence of sunlight. And the evening and the morning were the first day. again,
You're
the
assuming
evening
that the
is.
presence of sunlight. You're assuming that it says light. Doesn't say what the source of light is. He just created the sun on the fourth day to replace that source of light.
I hear you say that, but do you have evidence to back up or to support that? Because just a plain reading of the text tells me that if it says God called the light day and the darkness he called night, we know from all our experience that light is daylight and night is the absence of the sun, and the evening and the morning are both related to the sun rising and the sun setting. Now, all of that in verse 5. There's nothing there to lead us to believe it's anything other than sunlight.
Can I answer your question? Light.
Sorry.
Darkness is not the absence of sunlight. Darkness is the other side of the opposite side of the light. The sun is always there. The sun is still there. It's not the absence of the sun. It's the darkness it's the opposite side of the light source. So there was a light source on day one, and the earth was rotating. The evening and the morning were the first day.
Look, I do agree with you with darkness. I'm sitting in a room right now. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black outside. I've got lights on inside here. If I switch the lights off, it'll be dark. There's no sunlight involved. I agree with that. So the absence of any light would be dark. But in this context, where we're specifically talking about sunrise and sunset, where he says the morning and the evening were the first day. It doesn't say that, though. What?
The text doesn't say sunset and sunrise. It says the evening and the morning were the first day.
Correct. So from everything we know about life, evening and morning has to do with sunrise and sunset.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that.
Do we have any other examples of where evening and morning have anything to do other than sunrise and sunset?
Yeah, Genesis 1, verse 1 through 3 or 4.
Okay.
It says, God said, let there be light. There was light, and it was good. The evening and the morning were the first day. That's how God defined it. Then he created us, and then, 6,000 years later, we're saying that day and night can only be relative to the sun and the moon, but that's not how it was on Genesis in day one.
So aside from Genesis 1, is there any other time where morning and evening would be anything other than sunrise and sunset?
Yeah, the first 3 days of creation.
Sorry?
The first 3 days of creation, yes.
No, I'm saying aside from just the first 3 days of creation, is there any other context in which sunrise and sunset would be anything other than morning and evening?
No, because on the fourth day, he created the sun, and now that's how we measure the day and the night. It was a progression. He started on day one, and he progressed through day 6.
If God created this light, which was not sunlight, and it was working perfectly well, it was unnecessary to create the sun on day 4. We could have just kept that light.
Well, you're going hypothetical. God did what he did. I don't know how to answer that question. That's up to God. He made the decision to make the sun and the moon and the stars on day 4.
Which leads me back to my point that that light, according the light mentioned in Genesis 1, makes no sense other than sunlight, except for the fact that the sun was made on day 4.
Do we have other sources of light?
No, sure we do, but not in that context.
Okay. So sun is not the only source of light. So that light on the first day was the light that God manifested in the physical realm, whatever it was. And it served as a light until he created the sun. So,
which was an unnecessary step.
I don't know. It's a non-argument for me.
All right.
I don't have anything else, Donnie.
Okay, no worries. Katrina, Gary, I appreciate that first back and forth discussion here. And that was basically 25 minutes. So we were very close. That was 24 minutes to be exact. And so what I'll do is reset the timer. And now, Gary, you get to lead the way in discussion for 25 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. Let me just quickly find this. One of the problems when discussing a religion, especially God, is there's nothing that God can't do. He can just magic anything, and that makes it right. So, for example, what we just discussed, the light, where he just magicked something, and then that stood for that took the place of something very real that he only created later. This brings me to where you said matter cannot be created nor destroyed, which I agree with. Yet God created the universe out of nothing, even though matter cannot be created or destroyed. How can you balance those books?
Well, so if matter cannot be created nor destroyed by naturalistic processes, it has to be supernatural, which is that which is above nature, that which is beyond nature. There is no way the earth could have manifested from nothing by itself. It had to have been a supernatural event. The only being that could create a supernatural matter from nothing is a God who is omnipotent, who is omniscient, who is supernatural, who is eternal, who is a spirit, not of this realm. That's the only way.
Well, it's not the only way. If God
Okay.
is eternal, is it possible that matter is eternal as well?
No,
And
because
then,
of entropy. Matter cannot be eternal.
okay, let me rephrase. Is it because we know matter and energy is interchangeable? Matter can become energy, and energy can become matter. Is it possible that energy has always existed?
No, again, because energy gets used up. Energy is and matter are interchangeable. There could not have been, there had to have been a starting point for energy because of entropy. Entropy is always increasing.
In our current universe. But is it possible that energy existed before the universe came into being?
There's no way energy could be eternal, is what I'm saying, because of entropy. Energy is always being used up. Matter is always being degraded. There's no way, when you back extrapolate, there has to be a beginning of everything that is physical, natural, materialistic. The only person who could be eternal is a spirit, a supernatural God, a being who is omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent.
Only by definition. Okay, let me put this a different way. Entropy only exists because of the laws of our universe. What is the chances that energy existed before our universe? The energy that brought our universe, I must be careful with my words, that brought our universe into existence, that energy could have always existed, could have been eternal in the past.
Again,
entropy would not be affected by events pre the expansion of the universe.
So because energy is in the physical realm, it is materialistic, it is naturalistic, it gets used up, it cannot be eternal. For something to be eternal, it has no time that affects it. Energy is affected by time. It is bound by time. So when because of the passage of time, energy gets used up. So it could not have been eternal. That's an oxymoron.
Well, we don't know what happened before the creation of, or I shouldn't use that word, before the coming into being of the universe.
But it can't just spontaneously happen.
Why not?
The scientist, I forgot his name, the French scientist Curie proved that matter does not happen spontaneously, that life does not happen spontaneously, that nothing can come out of nothing. I mean, nothing can, if you have nothing, you're not going to have some spontaneous thing just appear. Our physical universe, it shows that over and over again. We see it. It's empirical. It's scientific that we see that nature cannot produce, or that energy and matter cannot be produced from nothing. It's a physical law that we see every day. So because
Agreed.
because time is moving on, energy is getting used up. There could not have been, energy cannot be eternal. It's an oxymoron to say that anything in this physical realm is eternal, because we see entropy all the time. We see things degrade. We see energy being used up.
Agreed. We do see that in our current universe with the current physical laws that act upon energy and matter. But what happened pre that?
Pre-event, that was God. God existed eternally by himself.
God is a good placeholder for the words "I don't know."
We do know. That's what I'm saying. We do know. We know these laws of the universe. We know these laws of physics. We know that entropy always increases. We know that matter always degrades. These are things we know. So we know that matter and energy cannot just come from nothing. We know that time had a beginning. We know that space was created. So we know this. So it's not, we don't believe in God because of something that we don't know. We believe in God because we know it. We know these things are impossible in the natural world, impossible materialistically, to just appear out of nothing.
No, what I meant was the God hypothesis is a placeholder for things we don't know. So how the universe came into being, we have a fairly good idea as far back as the Planck time. From that moment on, we've got a very good idea of how things transpired and carried on. Pre the Planck time.
How do you know that, though?
There's so much evidence out there. I don't have it on me, but there's so much evidence out there. I'm happy to share it with you. I'd have to look it up and share it with you. But we know that the instantiation of the universe was pure energy, and that over a while that cooled, created the most basic of atoms, hydrogen and helium, and a few other very, very simple ones. These formed and coagulated to create stars. The accretion disks formed planets.
Who was there to witness all that? You know that science is empirical. When you have empirical science, it is something that you can observe, you can test, you have a control group and you have an experimental group, and you test these against each other. Nobody was there in the beginning to say that all these things happen. These are just stories that scientists tell because they want to do away with God. But we know that we know. This is something we know. Matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed as we know it now, but they do exist. Therefore, they had to have had a beginning somewhere. We know they're not eternal because entropy is always increasing. We know that matter is always degrading. There can be no other explanation but a supernatural explanation, which is that is what is beyond the natural, that is beyond the material. Materialistic, naturalistic explanations cannot explain the existence of this universe. That's all I'm saying. So you have everything that is naturalistic and everything that is materialistic is ruled out completely, totally, absolutely. You have no other recourse but the God who is eternal, supernatural, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient.
Okay, I want to take you back a few sentences, because the minute you use the "were you there" argument, you must just be careful, because do you believe Adam and Eve existed?
Yes, I do.
Were you there?
God was there and
You
he gave it
witnessed
to
it.
us in his word. And I believe his word is true and reliable.
Well, that's up for debate.
Yeah,
which
yeah, that's what we're
which
debating.
and I'm not convinced. We take a lot more than that. Did Jesus exist? Were you there? Did you witness it?
Yes,
Did
because there
did
are
Moses?
witnesses. And the thing about historical events are those things that have witnesses, those things that we can go by witnesses. We cannot test something that already happened in history. That is impossible. That's why evolution and creation are both non-empirical sciences. However, we know we can do inference to the best evidence. We can listen to the witnesses who were there. God was there. God wrote his word. God gave his word to Moses. He spent 40 days on the mountain with Moses, giving him the entire history of the universe. So we have his witness. That's the only way that we can know what happened in history. We can't test it. We can't empirically test it. So we have to rely on witnesses. And then we have to rely on inference to the best evidence. And the evidence is there is no way that matter and energy can be created from nothing by naturalistic, materialistic means. We know this.
So if we're using best inference that we're using for other historical things, we must use it for almost said creation again, for the instantiation of the universe.
Well, it's okay to use creation because evolutionists use it all the time.
The problem is that the minute you use the word creation, you smuggle in a creator. And a creator is something that needs to be evidenced, it needs to be shown. You don't just get to say, you can't just define God into existence and say, well, he's capable of doing it, so he must have done it. It would need to be shown that, firstly, this God exists, that this God is capable of creating something, that this God did create the world. And the only evidence that anybody has that any of those things are the case is the Bible. And the Bible is fraught with problems, misinterpretations, interpolations, all kinds of problems that bring it into question. So if you have a questionable book, then you cannot have certainty in what's written in the pages.
Well, I think I made the case tonight that the Bible is true and reliable. So I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway.
And I believe I made the case that the Bible is not true and reliable. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'll give you an example from the medical field. So when I'm an ER nurse. When a patient comes into the ER, they have a complaint. Let's say it's abdominal pain that is like in their epigastrium, which is the spot between their chest and their abdomen. So we do a bunch of tests, and we do those tests so that we can rule out anything that is more serious. So we do an EKG, we do cardiac enzymes, we do their CMP, CBC, which are blood tests to determine what their electrolytes are, how their blood count is. So we want to rule out the worst things possible. So when I say that our universe could not have started from naturalistic, materialistic means, I mean that the evidence we have has completely ruled out any kind of naturalistic, materialistic explanation. Just like we in the medical field, when a patient comes in for abdominal pain, we try to rule out chest pain because chest pain is more serious, and we rule out the chest pain so we can treat the abdominal pain. So naturalistic, materialistic means are completely ruled out. Therefore, I believe that you can trust what God says about creation in Genesis. If we can trust what God says about creation, then we can trust the rest of what he says about the rest of his word. I mean, he gave it to us. He gave it to 40 people over a period of 1,500 to 2,000 years, and it all says the same thing. It's a cumulative book. Even though it's a series of books, it's an accumulative, it's a complete unit. So I think the Bible is true and reliable regardless. And the scientific evidence, the internal consistency, all of those give it credence, give the evidence that it truly is that.
All right. In your example now, the story about the ER, unless I'm really missing the point, you were using naturalistic means to prove, to find a naturalistic problem. There was no supernatural involved in that. So in a real world situation, we use naturalistic means to explain naturalistic phenomena. Again, no supernatural required or involved.
Well, I was using the example to show to you that how we rule things out. Naturalistic, materialistic means for the creation of this universe are ruled out. There's no possibility that matter and energy could have come from nothing. There's no possibility that matter and energy are eternal, because our physical laws, nature cannot do that, because we don't see it doing it now. It's scientific to observe the universe, to observe what's going on around us and come to these conclusions. We know that there is a law of thermodynamics, the first and second law of thermodynamics, and nothing natural, nothing materialistic can explain it. That means those things are ruled out.
Firstly,
so what do you have left? You have nothing left but the supernatural.
Nobody ever says that the universe came from nothing. Well, okay, religious people believe the universe came from nothing. I mean, that God poofed it into existence ex nihilo. But nobody in cosmology or any of those fields have ever said that the universe came from nothing. At worst, it came from a singularity, which is a concept that is not widely held anymore. But even that singularity, there's many other hypotheses out there about where the universe came from. None of them postulate a universe from nothing.
Well, a singularity would have to be eternal. So that
Correct.
singularity that they're talking about is probably God, because you have to have a initiator. You have to have everything that has a beginning has to have something outside of itself to begin it. You can't have something within itself to begin it. That's the law of causality. Something cannot cause itself to exist. Matter and energy could not have caused themselves to exist. So the singularity that they're talking about is the God that we're talking about.
So what caused God to exist?
He's eternal.
But energy cannot be.
Right. Energy cannot be.
I mean, energy outside of our current universe cannot be eternal. I understand that you're saying that entropy and all those things, but those things, entropy only exists because of the current setup of the universe, the laws that act upon the universe. But if you go back to the Planck time, it's a well-known scientific fact that the laws break down at the earliest point of the expansion of the universe. So,
but nobody has experienced that. What we have observed is these laws are consistent. They are tried and true every single time.
But we've already established the way you're there doesn't count.
Well, then it's not scientific.
You don't have to be there for it to be scientific.
For science is that which is observed, empirically tested. That's
observation. Observation is one of the steps in a scientific method. An observation doesn't necessarily mean seen. Observed can be can be something along the lines of, I have an idea of something that I think might not work.
Okay.
Now, I have observed there's a problem that needs a solution. So observed doesn't necessarily mean being there and seen it.
Well, then if that's the case, you're just making stuff up if you don't have a witness.
Which is basically what religions do.
No, that's basically what evolutionists do and atheists. You're making stuff up.
All right, let me give you a quick hypothetical. Do we have time for that, Donny?
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's take, for example, this is what if we had energy that was just always there, it always existed. Energy is the only thing that's ever been there for whatever reason. We don't know what the reason is, but it's been there. This energy somehow, for whatever reason, it could have been some kind of reaction or something. It spawned a universe. It rapidly expanded, forming a universe. And within that universe, there are black holes. And these black holes are like big vacuum cleaners that suck in matter and energy. And in a black hole, we know that matter is stripped back down to energy. And as a matter of fact, in the middle of the black hole, time even comes to a stop. Now we could have white holes, something that spits out this energy, creating a new universe. And this new universe has black holes which suck in matter and energy and spit it out again somewhere else, forming another Big Bang somewhere, where we could have multiple universes. And this energy is the only thing that exists, and it's moving from one universe to another, creating another one. In that instance, that energy would be eternal.
And you just made up a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
You just made up a story.
I did start off saying it's hypothetical.
Right. This is what evolutionists and atheists do. They make up stories because we know the laws of thermodynamics. We know the laws of physics. We know the laws of causality. We know that these things are tried and true. Nothing has ever deviated from that in our known history. So making up stories, you're making up stories though. It's irrelevant. You're making up stories. You just made up something that might happen. Well, our laws of physics don't allow that to happen.
Our laws of physics only exist in our current universe.
Right. This is the only universe we know.
Correct.
Empirically, scientifically, this is the only universe we know.
Correct. Now,
so anything beyond that is a story. It's a made-up story.
I could say the same thing about God. It's a made-up story. There's no evidence to show that it actually exists. So if some people are allowed to make up a story to explain the instantiation of the universe, then other people could use a different story to explain the instantiation of the universe.
But the existence of God is within the realm of reality, because you're talking about something that's natural, that's a hypothetical, that's a made-up story. I'm talking about something that is beyond nature. You either have the natural, the supernatural, or the unnatural. Well,
do you have any examples of supernatural? Does supernatural exist?
Yeah, it's above. That is what is natural. It is above and beyond what is natural. And in the spirit realm, God dwells in the spirit realm. He dwells above us. He is eternal. He is omnipotent. He is omniscient. He created us. And everything that has a beginning has to have a beginner. Everything that starts has to have a starter.
Okay, so now you've said the supernatural exists. Do you have any examples of the supernatural to show that it could even exist?
Yeah, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is one of them. The existence, the very fact that we exist is a supernatural event, because no thing can come from itself. No thing can exists from nothing. No life can
Okay.
come from non-life. I mean, this
The
is supernatural.
resurrection,
It's not
the
natural.
resurrection of Jesus is a story. Do you have anything to prove
It
that
was
happened?
witnessed by several people who, okay, go ahead, Donnie.
Oh no, I was going to say that's the last question. You guys are doing a great job. And so, Katrina, let's give you the final word. Feel free to respond, and then we'll move into closings.
Okay. I think I just proved my case that the Bible is true and reliable. The very beginning of the Bible is Genesis chapter 1, and it explains the creation of the universe in 6 days. And because we have the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of causality, we have all of those scientific evidences to show that Genesis 1 is real and it's true, then we can certainly ascertain that the rest of the Bible is true and reliable. And we have archaeological evidences. We have the witness of Jesus Christ. We have all the scientific evidences. We have internal validity, internal reliability of Scripture. So I think I made my case, and I hope that in the audience that they can certainly read the Bible for themselves and come to the same conclusion.
Thank you, Katrina. Katrina and Gary, excellent discussion. That was basically 50 minutes there, as that's just over the 26-minute mark for the second portion of the discussion. Very cordial, professional. You both gave me an incredibly easy job tonight in terms of moderation, and most definitely a thought-provoking exchange on an important question: is the Bible true and reliable? So that wraps up the discussion. I'll reset the timer. Again, we're moving along smoothly. So that's opening statements, rebuttals, and a comprehensive discussion. We now have closing statements, 5 minutes each is what I see here on the debate format. And therefore, to the audience, you have exactly 10 minutes roughly to send in your questions, send in your challenges, and we'll have some fun engaging those. Okay, Katrina, you started off with your opening statement, so we'll give you the first closing statement, and you have up to 5 minutes. Just let me know when you're ready, and I'll start your timer.
So actually, what I just said was my closing statement.
Oh, was that your closing?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying basically close out the discussion by
okay.
responding to Gary's question there. But hey, if you're happy with that as a closing, no worries at all. We can move to Gary's closing statement. So Gary, we'll hand it to you now. And so to the audience, correction, you got 5 minutes before we get to your question. Gary, go ahead.
Thank you. All right. So in closing, is the Bible true and reliable? Well, this is an important question, considering how many people read it, follow it, live by it, and consider it to be the living Word of God. If it were the Word of God, you expect it to be 100% truthful and 100% reliable. I have shown that those are the case. The Bible is rife with not only contradictions, scientific errors, and failed prophecies, but also suffers from misinterpretations, interpolations, discrepancies, and mistranslations. I'm not saying for a moment there aren't true things in the Bible. Clearly there are. But it would be a mistake to believe that the Bible as a whole is completely true and reliable. I have shown several instances where the Bible got facts wrong. This wouldn't be surprising if it were written by man, not God. Man is fallible. We make mistakes. Many stories in the Bible are older mythologies adapted and changed to fit the needs of an emerging Jewish culture, trying to find its feet after being conquered time and time again by anyone and everyone who passes by. In documenting these biblical stories, they were often exaggerated and adapted to meet a very specific need. And in doing so, truth was often left by the wayside. This is clear when reading stories like the creation of the world, Adam and Eve, Noah's flood, the Tower of Babel, the resurrection of Jesus, Jonah and the whale, David and Goliath, Sodom and Gomorrah, and many, many others. The problem is, after so many generations of telling and retelling stories that originally served a noble purpose, they became adopted as truth and compiled in a book that people view as reliable. I have shown several errors within those pages, and as I've mentioned before, even one error in truth makes the book as a whole not true and reliable. Once again, thank you to the lovely Katrina for debating this sensitive topic with me. And Donny and the crew, thank you very much for hosting us. I've enjoyed this immensely.
My pleasure, Gary and Katrina. Thank you very much for the professional and cordial exchange on a very important topic. The audience has really enjoyed themselves. It has generated a lot of healthy discussion in our live chat, and that includes several questions that have come in for the both of you. So what we'll do is engage those questions, since it's your first time here, the both of you, on the channel. How we typically structure the Q&A is whoever the question is for gets the last word. So let's say the question is for you, Gary. You get to respond first, of course. Katrina can also give her input. Maybe you'll say something she wants to rebut or respond to, so she gets that opportunity. And then we throw it back to you for a final word. So, okay, let's start right at the beginning here. Bible U has a question for Gary. How would you objectively define truth?
I define truth as that which comports with reality. So something is true if it's evidenced in reality. If something doesn't, I like to take the Judge Judy view that if something doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. So it's something has to make sense, and it has to comport with reality. That for me is objectively true.
Thank you, Gary. Katrina, let's throw it over to you. If there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
Yeah, and the example I gave earlier about the idiom is raining cats and dogs. It's true that it's raining hard, but you use a metaphor to enhance that truth. I think so. Truth is something that is grounded in reality, but we also consider truth as things that colorful language that enhances that truth.
Thank you, Katrina. Gary, you get the last word. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay, appreciate it. Next one is now for you, Katrina. Left-handed Jedi, $5 super chat. I appreciate the support. And here's the question. Do you know that Genesis is based off of the Sumerian myths? Creation is just a retelling. So the argument here is creation is just a retelling of the Marduk and Tiamat. Katrina, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's basically garbage. Abraham did come out of Sumer of he would the Jews, the Hebrews basically came out of Mesopotamia in that area. And when God first created man, he created Adam and Eve, and men knew God, and they knew of those stories, and they got passed down from generation to generation. Well, God chose Abraham out of that society because Abraham would teach his children the truth about God. There had been so many rumors and deviations from the truth because men had started, sinning. The very first child born to this human couple committed murder. People started deviating from God. And so there were several stories that were kind of based on the truth, but they deviated. But God chose Abraham out of that society because he would teach his children the truth about God. And that's exactly what he did. And then God gave the truth to Moses later on from the line of Abraham.
Thank you, Katrina, for that response. Gary, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, left-handed Jedi is absolutely correct. As I mentioned in my closing, many of the stories in the Bible, the overwhelming majority of the stories in the Bible, the Old Testament, come from older mythologies that have been adapted and changed to fit the needs of this emerging Jewish community. If you just take, for example, where the Jews were told that they were God's chosen people, that was done for a very specific purpose. The Jews needed to know that they needed to know that they had God on their side to be able to survive and thrive in the situation they were in. They were constantly being conquered and time again by various people. So they needed to take older mythology, especially when they were conquered and they were taken into a new land or invaded by people. There was a syncretism that occurred with where the older religions were interwoven and became a part of the Jewish traditions. So it's not unsurprising that the old Sumerian myths were changed and adapted to fit this very specific need by the Jewish people.
Thank you, Gary. Katrina, the question was for you, so you get the last word or last response if you'd like it.
Okay, again, the Bible specifically states how men deviated from the truth of God. Men became more and more wicked. He caused the great flood to destroy mankind. He saved 8 people, including Noah. Noah had a grandchild or great-grandchild named Abraham who came out of Mesopotamia in that region. God specifically pointed him out because Abraham believed God and would teach his children the truth about God, whereas all those other people had deviated from the truth. So that's where these myths come from. They were just made up things about God in the beginning. But God chose Abraham for a specific purpose because he would teach his children and because he believed God.
Thank you, Katrina, for that last word. Okay, the next one is for you, Gary. Comes in from Eastgate Adoptionist. Appreciate the $10 super chat and support for tonight's debate. Again, Katrina, Gary, you guys gave us a very engaging debate on the topic, and I appreciate that. So, Gary, here's the question or challenge for you. I agree with you that scripture doesn't make sense if you are only going to be literal with it. Why stay in the faith if you don't even know the Bible is about the relationship with God? Go ahead, Gary.
Is the question about why stay in the faith?
Yeah, I'm trying to interpret it as well. Why stay in the faith if you don't even know the Bible is about a relationship with God? Maybe he's trying to say that somebody who is quote unquote in the faith, but they don't really know what the deeper meaning of the Bible is, what's the point of staying in the faith? I'm not sure. That's the way I interpret it. But if the questioner wants to clarify in the chat, he can.
All right. No, I'll attempt this one. The way I understand this is what the questioner is asking, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, is that the Bible shouldn't be taken literally. You must read it as a book about man's relationship with God. The more important part of the question to me is why stay in the faith? I stayed in the faith as long as I believed that the Bible was just about a relationship with God. It was only after I found all the discrepancies, all the errors, all the misconstrued notions within the Bible. That wasn't the only thing. There were many other reasons as well, but that is why I left the faith. So I am no longer in the faith, mainly because if the Bible is a book about the relationship with God, and there's no evidence has been given to me that a God actually exists, then a book about a relationship with a essentially fictional character is not enough to keep me believing in it. In the same way, I gave up believing in Santa Claus when I found out he didn't actually exist. I did the same with Yahweh.
Thank you, Gary. Katrina, the floor is yours.
I don't know how to answer that question.
That's okay. That's okay. Why don't we just move on to the next one? Gary, appreciate you engaging that. We'll get one for you now, Katrina. Another one from Left-Handed Jedi. Appreciate the support and the question for Katrina. Here's the question. As a nurse, how do you get past the obvious genetic bottleneck of Noah's flood?
I don't get past it. I accept it as reality. There was a bottleneck, and it has been proven, or at least shown evidence by Professor Jensen, that there was an actual bottleneck. There are also atheistic evolutionist scientists who say that there was a bottleneck, and Professor Jensen has shown that there are only 3 haploid groups that all of humans today came from.
Very good. Appreciate it, Katrina. Gary, any thoughts?
Well, firstly, Left-Handed Jedi is fast becoming my favorite person. My biggest
fans in there.
Say again?
You both have some fans in the chat. There's a pretty good mix of those on your side, Gary, and then those rooting for you, Katrina.
Brilliant. My biggest issue with Noah's flood, and I've got a whole video on Noah's flood. The genetic bottleneck is a huge problem, but my bigger one is a more simpler is a more simple problem. If you take, for example, the Egyptian pharaohs, there's an unbroken line of pharaohs going to a lot further back in time than the depicted time of the flood. So at what time did these pharaohs cease to exist, and then one of Noah's grandkids, great-grandkids, suddenly became a pharaoh of Egypt? Also, there are aboriginals in Australia that have lived for thousands of years, and they didn't even notice the water. The Chinese, again, have an extremely long line of I mean, at the time the flood happened, they were busy inscribing things onto pottery and stuff like that. All these civilizations the world over, outside of the Mesopotamian area, all these places, the people in South America, the Australians, there's people in Africa, people in Asia, none of them noticed the flood, and they were around for a lot longer.
Gary, appreciate it. Do I predict a future Noah's flood debate with you on this channel with someone? That'd be fun.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, let's do it. That'll be good. Great topic. Audience loves it. I love it. Katrina, over to you. The question was for you, so you get the last word. Go ahead.
Okay, so our written history only goes back to about the same time as the flood. So written history is more reliable because it is a I mean, it's put into words. It's almost like written in stone. So there is no evidence that these societies are older than the flood, except for maybe carbon dating, which is also unreliable in itself because there are different factors that affect carbon dating. So, in some of these societies, there were plenty of humans around before the flood. So, everything, all the humans were wiped out, but things did fossilize. So there may be some remnants of prior of societies before the flood, but definitely there was a flood that produced a genetic bottleneck, and out of eight people, the human race exists today.
Thank you, Katrina, for that last word. Okay, we'll get one for you now, Gary. Here's another one from Eastgate Adoptionist, $5 super chat. So we're getting a debate between Gary and Eastgate, and then a debate between Katrina and who was the last questioner again? Left-handed Jedi. There we go. So here's a question for you, Gary. Can you find a secular archaeologist in Israel that claims there wasn't a man named Jesus?
Okay, firstly, I have no idea about any secular archaeologists that claim there wasn't a man named Jesus. I'm not a mythicist, not necessarily. I don't necessarily believe there wasn't a Jesus. As a matter of fact, I lean towards there probably was a Jesus. I mean, Yeshua was a very common name back then. It was like John today. Every second kid was called Yeshua, or some variation thereof. Was there a preacher wandering around Galilee preaching end times? Almost certainly there were several of them. It wasn't uncommon for there to be this end time preaching going on. Where my credulity ends is when it comes to the magic version of it, the walking on water, the water to wine, the all the magic associated with Jesus, and the claim that Jesus is the Son of God. Now those are the actual ones, but a real man named Jesus, I have no problem that there probably was. I have no problem that this entire thing is probably based on a real person.
Thank you, Gary. Katrina, over to you.
I just want to touch on something Gary said about magic. There's a big difference between magic and supernatural. Magic is sleight of hand, illusion, trickery. There was none of that in that happened with Jesus. These people actually witnessed him turn water into wine. These people actually witnessed him raised from the dead. These are supernatural events. They're not magic. There's nothing magic about an eternal God beginning a universe that had a beginning. I mean, there's no question. Magic is sleight of hand. Magic is trickery. Magic is illusion. Supernatural is what is above nature, what is beyond nature.
Thank you, Katrina. Gary, you get the last word.
Yeah. Okay. So just for one moment, I just want to touch on two of those things that Katrina mentioned there about miracles. The water into wine. Is it possible? Again, hypothetical. Yeah, they are at the wedding. There's a place where they're keeping all the wine on top there. They're serving all the guests, and they're keeping all the good wine at the bottom because they don't want the uninvited to drink the good wine. They serve all the wine. The wine is finished. So they replace all the wine beakers with water and say to the guests, sorry, wine is done. We don't have any more. And then at some point, somebody whispers to the bartender, I know you got the good stuff at the bottom. Give me a bottle of it. And the bartender picks up a jar of the water, switches it takes it down to the bottom, puts it at the bottom, brings up the one full of wine to give to the guest. And somebody standing a little bit further back goes, did you see that? He just turned water into wine. The other one, Jesus walking on water. If you read the original Greek, the word for walking on is actually walking by. So he was actually walking by the water, which meant walking along the shore, probably ankle deep, but he wasn't walking on the water. He was walking by the water. It's a mistranslation.
Okay, thank you, Gary, for that last word. Okay, so the next question here comes in. Well, it's another one from Eastgate Adoptionist. Appreciate the support. And it's for you again, Gary. Does the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics give evidence of an infinite, unobservable side to reality?
I'm just a simple atheist. You're going to have to
That's
explain that
over my
one to
head.
me.
Well, we appreciate the support, Eastgate. And,
I know what the double slit
technical-
experiment is, but I'm not sure what he means by infinite observable side to reality.
possibly, let's see here, an infinite, unobservable side to reality.
I'm not sure what's meant
So
by that.
maybe either he's coming at the atheist position of multiverse, or he's trying to say that this experiment gives evidence for the eternal side. I'm not sure, but we'll move on rather than guess what he's trying to ask. Shepherd, $5 super chat, appreciate it, says thank you both. Bring them back. You both back. So obviously that's a Christian who wants you back, especially Katrina. But
Thank you,
Gary,
Shepherd.
your side wants you back. So you guys did a good job. I appreciate it. And okay, let's see what else we have here in terms of regular questions, as we did have quite a few come in. And so let's get this question in here from Spielcab von Sparta. Question for, it looks like it's for you actually, Katrina. How do you know everything has a beginning? Energy is eternal. First law of thermodynamics. How does this imply a beginning of the universe?
Well, first of all, energy is not eternal. The first law of thermodynamics says that energy and matter are not created are neither created nor destroyed, but they are conserved. That is our existing universe right now. But the second law of thermodynamics holds that entropy is always increasing, heat is always dissipating. So back extrapolating, we know that everything has a beginning from the second law of thermodynamics. With that being said, energy could not have been eternal, just like matter cannot be eternal, since they are both interchangeable. If energy is eternal, then matter would have to be also, but we know that that's not the case. So back extrapolating from entropy, from time passing, from the destruction of matter, we back extrapolate to know that everything has a beginning. Now, since everything has a beginning, and nothing that has a beginning could cause itself to exist, can cause itself to begin, there had to be an outside entity, an outside being, an outside body that created everything in our universe. That can only be explained by an eternal, omnipotent, omniscient creator.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Gary, floor is yours. Go ahead.
Well, firstly, we don't know that energy cannot be eternal. Within our current universe, with our current laws, I agree with you. But pre the current universe, the energy that existed before the universe came into existence, there's no way for you to know that energy isn't eternal. It could very well have been eternal, and once it entered our universe, once it became our universe, it became subject to the laws of the universe. Just as when it exits our universe, once again it gets stripped down, and once again there's no way to know whether the laws were affected or not. We can't see further back than the Planck time. There was something else that escapes me now. That's my answer for that one.
Thank you, Gary. Katrina, you get the last word. Go ahead.
Okay, so in Marvel Comics, they have all kinds of hypotheticals. You know, in this last Marvel Comics, the baby Superman was killed, and his cousin was the one that came to Earth. So I'm like, you can come up with all kinds of hypotheticals, but our current universe that we know we don't know of any other universe. That's outside of science. That is outside of the realm of science. That is in the realm of fiction, of make-believe, of thousand Marvel comic universes. What we know is that the first and second law of thermodynamics prove that everything has a beginning and that nothing was created from nothing. I mean, nothing cannot create itself. I mean, nothing can cause something. I don't know. That's a crazy statement. Therefore, God is the only being who could have created everything ex nihilo. Nature can't do that. Material can't do that. So by the laws of thermodynamics and the law of causality, we know that everything has a beginning and nothing can create itself. Therefore, there had to be a supernatural explanation for the existence of everything.
Thank you very much for that final word, Katrina. And that is roughly 25 minutes. Again, this has been an excellent debate, a very thought-provoking debate. And I do appreciate how professional and cordial the both of you were. And thanks for giving us your time for tonight. If we could, let's get some final words, final thoughts. I hope you both had a good time here, as it is your first time here on the Standing For Truth debate platform. You guys did a good job and gave us a debate to remember. So I appreciate you hanging out with me for a couple hours. Katrina, let's hand it to you first. Final words, final thoughts. And again, thanks so much for doing this.
Okay. I just wanted to say I appreciate Gary. You know, when he first approached me about debating, I was kind of terrified at first. But I've come to know him better, and I think he's a great opponent. And thank you, Donny, also for hosting us this time. And I just want to say that I look forward to more of these. And thank you to your audience for listening. And I had a great time.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Katrina. We look forward to having you back on again in the future. And that also goes for you as well. Gary, appreciate you doing this. I know you're on like a completely different time zone than us, Katrina and I. So thank you for getting up nice and early to give us a really good debate on the topic of, is the Bible true and reliable? So let's hand it to you for some final words, final thoughts.
Yeah, once again, Donny, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Katrina, as always, lovely to debate you. I've really enjoyed it. Donny, being on your channel, it was a bit daunting, I will admit. You know, for once, I'm not on an atheist platform. I was expecting a lot more pushback, but you've been very kind and generous and honourable in your handling. I really enjoyed it. I promise next time to be more prepared and to bring more vigor and verve to it. But I hope to be invited back. I think there's a couple of really good topics we could tackle, and I would love to do this again. Thank you again.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. I appreciate anybody who's willing to jump into the debate octagon. I know it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, energy, time, and effort. And you both clearly put in the work to give us a great debate on the topic. So we're looking forward to having you both back here in the future. No need to be nervous. Gary, as a moderator, my goal is to sit back, relax, and be as neutral as I can, allowing the debaters to go at it and debate the topic. So Katrina and Gary, we are going to let you both out of here for the rest of the night, I guess, for Katrina and I, but for you, Gary, the rest of your day. So you enjoy it. You're in the future, Gary.
I am.
You've come from the future
Gary.
to hang out with us. Katrina and Gary, we'll talk to the both of you a little bit later. Okay, guys, that wraps up another excellent debate here on Standing for Truth. That's another one in the books for anybody who might be new to this channel and this platform. I do want to let you know that we've been hosting debates for years now on all sorts of topics: creation, evolution, the Bible, soteriology, eschatology, the nature of God, philosophy, you name it. We've probably hosted a debate on it. And so if you check out the channel and the website, standingfortruthministries.com, you can find a playlist, at least on the YouTube channel, and on the website, I'm always updating it, where you'll find over 400 debates on all sorts of topics to enjoy. The reason why we do this is because I think it's important that we get out of our theological echo chambers or scientific echo chambers, depending on what the topic is, and enter into the debate ring here, where we can discuss differences in views, differences in worldviews in a professional manner, as Gary and Katrina demonstrated tonight. So for those interested in participating in a debate or an event in the future, appreciate that, Doki. You can find here my email, standingfortruthministries@gmail.com. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you'd like to debate. And we're always looking for new debaters and also topics that people want to see engaged more and more. And so, okay, let me give you guys a rundown of what we have coming for everybody next this week, but also next week. So we'll be back here in just a couple days for this time a debate on the nature of hell. And so this will be between Curious Christianity and Turretin Fan. They are going to be debating annihilationism versus eternal conscious torment. Controversial topic, a topic that is not debated nearly enough. And so I'm looking forward to having two knowledgeable individuals here, Turretin Fan and Adam is who Curious Christianity is, to engage this topic. Then the next day, I'll be here with Ben Kissling and Redefine Living, or Sam, my award-winning co-host, will be responding to arguments made by Inspiring Philosophy. And I'm excited for this program. We were with Ben Kissling a couple months ago. We did a video responding to William Lane Craig, which has received a lot of good feedback. And so I'm excited for this one coming up this week on Thursday. For the weekend, on Saturday, Matt and myself will actually be on a different channel. We'll be on Sam Shamoon's channel, giving a presentation on biblical creation and the topic of evolution. So I'll put out, I guess, a notification in the community tab for people to check that out. Then next week, we've got the much anticipated debate. I am pumped for this one. This will be a debate on the age of the earth. What is the age of the earth? Two experienced debaters, two very knowledgeable individuals. I'm pumped for this one. Sam will be here. He'll be joining me for this debate. Dr. Fuzz Rana from Reasons to Believe, and also Dr. Robert Sungenis, Old Earth Creation versus Young Earth Creation. We're going to be ending this year with a bang, guys. And then we're going to be kicking off 2025 with a bang as well. And so I'm excited. We got back-to-back. So this is a 2-day event, 2 days, 2 epic debates. So January 10th, Friday, January 10th, this one's up on the channel. So make sure to hit that notification bell. We've got 2 experienced individuals in the world of ancestry, origins, creation, evolution. They both have been studying this topic for years and years. They know their stuff. This is definitely going to be an informative debate, a debate you don't want to miss. I'm pumped for it. Dr. Jerry Bergman and Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal, Common Descent or Common Design. And that'll be on January 10th. And then the very next day, January 11th, this one is going to be epic as well. I'm looking forward to it. The Great Evolution Debate, the Order Carnivora. So this will be Dr. Dino and Dr. Chris Thompson. And so they're going to be narrowing it down just to the Order Carnivora. And so Dr. Thompson, he's going to take the affirmative, arguing that the order of Carnivora, which includes animals like dogs, cats, walrus, skunks, and so on, they are all related through common ancestry. So again, that's a back-to-back debate event, and that'll be at the very beginning of January 2025. We've also got this one to kick off the year with Ben Kissling and Curious Christianity. Is the Bible agnostic about the age of the earth? And so both of these gentlemen have studied this topic extensively. Adam here from Curious Christianity, he was just here a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, actually. Time flies by. He debated Kent. So they debated Old Earth Creation or Young Earth Creation. And that debate was definitely a lot of fun. So this one should be good. Last week, we had several big debates. Saturday, we had the Great Salvation Debate, Charles Jennings and Sean Griffin. Excellent debate. If you haven't yet seen that one, do check it out. We also have the great carbon dating debate, Dr. Dino and Atheist Jr. Tons of fun. It was great to have an entire 2-hour debate just on this topic. I always enjoy picking a very specific point or topic within the greater creation versus evolution debate and engaging that. And so that's what we've been doing a lot lately. This one was carbon dating, and it did not disappoint. So if you haven't yet seen it, check it out. Theology debates coming up as well. We've got this one here that we just booked. Pastors Tommy McMurtry and Daniel Aldridge. Hell, Paradise, and Abraham's Bosom. Controversial topic, but a topic that you don't see debated very often. So I'm excited that both Pastor McMurtry and Aldridge agreed to do this. Pastor McMurtry and I will be doing an open mic challenge first thing in January, Hebrews. It's going to be a comprehensive program on the book of Hebrews. Hebrews does not teach believers can lose their salvation. Prove us wrong. And so Pastor Tommy and I, we are going to largely focus on Hebrews 3, Hebrews 6, Hebrews 10. Pastor McMurtry is nearly done a series on the entire book of Hebrews. I linked that in the description box of that open mic challenge. So if you want, feel free to check it out. It's an excellent series. See how he views and engages the book of Hebrews. If you disagree, well, that's great. It's going to be an open mic discussion. And so for those who want to join, feel free to hit the notification bell on that. We'd love to have you engage us. Doki Doki Bible Club, appreciate that. JB Natural Skincare, do check that out, jbnaturalskincare.com. And I've been using the cream now that in December here is very cold in Canada, and so with all that coldness comes dry hands, and the cream works like magic. So definitely take advantage of that. You'll find that again, jbnaturalskincare.com. And you can also check other things here on standingfortruthministries.com. So here in 2024, at the end of this year, so just in a couple weeks, I'll be here with Matt Naylor and Matt Powell. This is just going to be an all things creation event. It is going to be done live. I'm excited for it. We are going to be engaging audience questions, responding to videos, possibly opening up the mic for people to join to ask questions and have some discussion. So it's just a way for us to end the year in a fun and interactive way with our live chat. Lots of people excited for this one, including myself. This is a debate between T-Rock and Planet Peterson. These gentlemen are both excellent debaters, and I think this is going to be a pretty epic clash. So again, that is the Age of the Earth, and that's coming up soon as well. 2-day event at the end of the year. I told you we're ending the year with a bang. We got a lot for you, so we're going to end the year. This is these events are up on the channel, but let me double check which days these are so you guys can have a reminder here. And so December, closer to the end, December 18th and 19th. So we'll be kicking it off with Dr. Jerry Bergman. We're going to be doing a live Q&A with Jerry for a couple hours. Then the very next day, live Q&A with Dr. Grady S. McMurtry. So that will give you guys the opportunity in our live audience to engage with questions, challenges, objections for a couple hours. All right, let's wrap it up with a couple more of these reminders and announcements. And guys, this is just a sneak preview into the content and material we have for you coming in the next month or two. So the book of Hebrews, Loss of Salvation, ? Dr. George Antonios and Chris Morrison. And then we've got one here, another exegetical debate, Dr. George Antonios and Charles Jennings. What is the best interpretation of James 2? So we're picking specific chapters or books here and going to do an entire debate on those. And so, okay, guys, I hope you had as much fun as I did. I really enjoyed this debate. I thought it was very thought-provoking and engaging. In terms of announcements and reminders as far as upcoming events, just a teaser, sneak preview, and everything we have for you. So if you do want to stay up on everything coming out here from SFT Ministries, do make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're checking the upcoming live streams section of the channel. And you can also stay up to date on our website, standingfortruthministries.com. Okay, guys, we will see you back here on Wednesday. I'm also doing some pre-recordings throughout the week, as I do want to get several more videos out by the end of this year. I'll be doing a Trinity podcast with a guest, Talk Trinity series. We're going to have many episodes on that. And I'm supposed to pre-record with a couple skeptics. We're supposed to do some discussions as well on creation versus evolution related topics. And I am going to be continuing the series that I'm doing on biblical creation. So lots to look forward to, guys. God bless you all. I appreciate you tuning in. Michelle Cherie, KJV, appreciate that, sister. She says, great channel. Everyone subscribe and like. That's one of our veteran mods, Michelle Cherie. Always a pleasure. Doki Doki as well, brother. Always a pleasure. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate the love, the support, the questions, the challenges, the super chats, and the engagement. God bless all. Standing for Truth is out.